you're listening to the Neil Lamptey Show. My name's Joey, and I'm joined by Paul.
All right, mate.
And Neil.
Yes.
That sums up exactly how I feel, I think.
End the pod.
Yeah. I've got to be honest with you. You guys weren't at the game on Saturday, were you?
No.
Hiding from me. I don't think I've got a great deal to say.
Calm down a bit. Have you?
Well, I calmed down from last week, yeah, because it wasn't anywhere near as bad as the Fleetwood game. But that's not to say that it was good. Yeah, I did, being hilarious on the internet as I am, I did the player ratings pre-game.
You did. That was the best part of it, wasn't it?
Yeah, as a sort of hilarious sideways glance on the nature of doing player ratings and stuff like that. But actually, it ended up being scarily close to what actually happened in the game. It was I just gave a 6 to everyone, which in my head is just like completely average.
Yeah.
And then that is pretty much outside of Biggie, just what happened. But there were some notable things that happened during the game, but I'm going to save that for my moment of the week. So, Paul, do you have a moment of the week?
Well, my moment of the week is the befuddlement that arose during one of Mowbray's interviews last week with the press, where he said, to quote, "I didn't go into the season thinking we were going to play 3 at the back."
Oh, yeah, wow, okay.
It's like, well, you played the whole of pre-season playing 3-5-2.
Yeah, and bought...
So, surely you must have had some inkling you're going to play 3 at the back.
Who bought a defender who just spent the last 2 years in League One playing on the left-hand side of a back three.
And, yeah, so it was just, yeah, that was... That, and he made a comment about Kyle Reid, where when we first signed him, he went, yeah, you can either play where Ryan Haynes is playing, or you can play front in the left of a front three. And last week went, well, it's a bit difficult for Reid, because the formation we're using at the moment doesn't play with wingers. And it was like, well, hang on.
Whoa there. Yeah.
So, yeah, my moment of the week is just... and it's not just Mowbray, because all managers do it, it's just the utter bollocks that managers appear to be able to get away with when talking to the press. Without someone going, in a normal world, if someone went, well, I wasn't intending to play 3-5-2, someone would have gone, but you spent all summer playing 3 at the back. What was your intent? When were you going to change to 4-4? You know, what is the actual formation you want to play this season? But no, luckily, Mowbray just gets away with, I don't want to play it, but I'm playing it, and everyone goes, Oh, okay.
Well, you've alluded to it there, and we've talked about it about 1 million times. They're futile, aren't they? Because the press can't ask him any meaningful questions, because then it means that they won't get further interviews out of him. And he just gets to talk, anyone gets to say whatever they want. They become, effectively, like a sort of comedy routine, where both sides are trapped. Mowbray obviously doesn't want to do them, because he can't be asked, and the press can't ask him anything. And yet, as long as we keep clicking on the links and keep listening to it, it's just pure rhetoric will just continue. If he had a comedy brain on him, he could just be a lot funnier, couldn't he? And not like in a overt way. He could just talk absolute horseshit and just get away with it. Go on, you disagree?
Well, obviously, he has just talked absolute horseshit. But the thing is, I think when you've managed Coventry and you've only really got 2 newspapers who give a shit, I think it's slightly easier for the press to actually ask a slightly more difficult question. You're Alex Ferguson in front of like 30, 40 journalists, and they ask him a difficult question. He can either scoot over it or not ask that person again. But even then, it's like they get asked difficult questions. It's like he's only really got to deal with the Telegraph and the Observer. If one of those two went, we'd like to... I mean, as you alluded to earlier, I don't think you did it on the pod. Again, I asked a load of questions today, and one person's asked about the number of changes we've made and the fact we've used more players this season than anyone else in our division. And it's like, but no one asked Mowbray last season about the fact he kept changing the damn team. So why would anyone ask him this season? I mean, last season it appeared to obviously affect performances because we went downhill and the more he tinkered. But again, it's like, no one asked him no one asked him a difficult question. It's quite easy to manage Coventry City at times. It's like you can basically do whatever you want and we question him, but he doesn't have to actually answer to us. it's just a bit, just once on player. That's just, that's really odd what you've said. So what is the formation we're meant to be playing?
Neil, what do you reckon, or do you give a shit?
Don't give no shits, mate.
Nah, fair play. What's your moment of the week?
I don't really know. I was looking through what's gone on the week before, and I think my moment of the week is just, it's that vague moment again. It's these sort of, I don't know what the word is, sort of overreaction of COV fans to reasonable performances. It's kind of, there's no middle ground or sort of rational thought. It's kind of like Biggie, for instance. By all accounts, he played better than he has done against Millwall, but it was by no means sort of a supreme performance. But after that performance, we've now had a week's worth of, or maybe a few days, worth of just everybody going mad about Biggie, about how great he is. And it's like, well, do it for 10 games, play well, for a consistent period, and then we'll start to talk about you. But we've been there before with him, and it's kind of about Biggie and just about, the game as well. We haven't won all season still. We did okay, and we kind of bossed it for a period, and suddenly everything's going to be fine. I'm still worried.
Yeah, and with good reason. The period that you're talking about there, I think, lasted for 15 minutes.
Exactly, and it's just like people. Oh, it was a hard game. We still played well. We've got a draw. It's a good point, and now we'll move on. Well, we're into September. We're still talking about we'll eventually get going. When's it going to start? When? I can't wait any longer.
Can't I just defend Biggie for a second though?
No. But, okay.
Well, the thing is, when we signed him back, all anyone was, he's shit, and it's like, well, he's clearly not shit. What he is, he's a player who hasn't really played for 3 years. And it is one of those where maybe he's getting a lot of praise for the fact that people had low expectations and he's exceeded them. Maybe, as you say, everyone around him is playing shit, so he stands out a little bit more because he's less shit than everyone else. Or maybe he's just not that bad a player who's playing in League One surrounded by bad players, and he's just, by the end of this season, it'll be a case of, it was nice to see Biggie for another year, but he stood out as being too good for League One. Maybe
that's the point then, isn't it? By the end of the season, it's kind of, we'll give him some games to figure him out, because let's give him the benefit of the doubt. He hasn't played much for 3 years, but it's just, every time he either does something bad, immediately Biggie is the worst player we've ever seen. Or when he does something good, suddenly it's Biggie, he's back. And it's like, well, no, he's not shown us anything. He's shown us that he's capable, he's got good footballing ability, but he's also shown us that he's a bit of a wally. So we need to kind of just measure it a little bit and not go over the top either way, and just give him a chance to find his feet and just prove to us that he's actually a good footballer, rather than sort of almost saying, okay, well, that 5-minute spell or that 10-minute spell, suddenly he's back to the mythical Biggie that we all know.
And the mythical Biggie that we all know probably played 12 games?
Yeah, for a really, really bad team, wasn't it? And he was all right back then, but I think a lot of that was warped by the fact that he was playing in a very bad team, and we had someone who actually looked somewhat useful. I mean, maybe that has thrown us a little bit, but...
And I think we really wanted to love him, didn't we?
Yeah, and I think we all did love him, and we love him for who he is, and just his whole sort of demeanour. It's great, it's Biggie, but there comes a point where he has to actually start acting and implementing that talent that we kind of see he's got. So I'm willing to let him do that, but at the same time, I'm not going to go mental about him just because he's had a reasonable game. I mean, start giving us some performances, Biggie. Then we'll give you your praise.
I'm going to come on to his performance because it's one of the more notable ones when we get on to the actual game itself. But something much more important happened on Saturday, and I want to talk about that as part of the moment of the week. As the moment of the week. Now, I'm going to have to try and keep this reasonably brief, but it is hard to wrap up in less than a few minutes, so I do apologize.
Tell the tale. Tell the story. Regardless.
So in the second half, towards the very start of the second half, in the most sort of unnoticeable, typical football stadium playground way, one of the more boisterous gentlemen in the Millwall end of the ground that was closest to the away fans was accused of having questionable sexual practices with children, which I think anybody that's been to a football match will know is not big, is not clever, and is quite funny sometimes. What I haven't seen before is a reaction of the magnitude of this person. Before we started recording, I was saying to Neil, I guess I'm directly addressing the 3 listeners here. I was talking to Neil and saying that, as anyone that's ever got bullied will know, when you get home and talk to your mum, she'll tell you that they're just looking to get a rise out of you and just let it pass. This guy had no concept of it whatsoever. And I've never seen anyone lose their mind as quickly as this guy did. One of the first things he chose to do, because he was being singled out because of his white jacket and because of the fury that this incurred, in one swift moment managed to rip it directly off his back and throw it into the seats in front of him. And that was the point where the crowd knew, we've got him. We've absolutely, fully, 100% got him. Then they continue to shout, "You're a pedo," and "You're a nonce," etc., at him. But then he went and grabbed what I assume were his own kids. And at first it was one, but the more irate he was, the more kids that he got. And lined them up in front of him and was like shouting at people and swearing at people with these kids as a sort of weird human shield. Or de facto paedophile denier. Like, how can I have sex with kids when I've got kids in front of me? I'm not sure you're helping your cause, mate. This escalated at one point. I imagine. So I think that from sort of start to finish, this process took about between 5 and 10 minutes. I would suggest that most of the COV fans had stopped watching the game for the duration of it. There was people around me. The ball was active. I mean, it's 10 minutes of a football match. Like most of the time, they actually equalised pretty much as soon as this guy got escorted off. But nobody was interested in the game anymore. The guy was absolutely apoplectic in a way that I don't think I've seen in a long, long time. And he kept threatening to jump over the wall and come and get it. He kept jumping on the wall to berate the fans and do that thing that football fans do where they point at other football fans and then don't do anything about it. And then he eventually mustered up the courage and he jumped over the wall. The final bit of this that's worth mentioning is, even had he the desire to get into the away section, the away fans were sat in the upper tier and the lower tier was completely unpopulated. So he'd have needed to have either have been Spiderman or there'd have been a ladder set up that was outside of eyeshot for him to have got up there. So you think the sequence of events that he must have considered and then dismissed as irrelevant would have been get past the stewards in the first place, get up into the top tier of the ground,
buy a ticket,
completely unassisted. Well, I'm thinking that he'd go direct. That's an interesting point. Would he have walked all the way around, bought a ticket, and come in through the back? That genuinely would have had an element of surprise about it. Get up there by whatever means, and then from there, presumably either vigorously discuss with all of the away fans the reason. Or take every single one of them on, and then just go home completely unapproached.
Job done.
Yeah, job done. Instead, what happened was he immediately got wrestled to the ground by 2 stewards. He tried to escape from them eventually, and then for those of you that are on Twitter, it's at 3 of clubs. I think it might be at _3 of clubs. Jim Lee, who's been on the podcast here before, who I was stood with, has magnificently captured a video of this guy's eventual... how would you describe it? These are actual capture. There's a capture of the capture. And it is, it's glorious. It really is. But I've, as I say, never seen a football fan go from 0 to 10 to such so quickly. It was brilliant. Yeah, so there's been delightful people sharing their memories of it on Twitter. It will really go down in the memory.
Sounds spectacular. Sounds really good.
The game, on the other hand, not so memorable, I would suggest. Hashtag segue. A lot better than Fleetwood, but then even sort of after we recorded last week's podcast on Monday as well, didn't we? And it's really fresh in the memory then. And sometimes if you record one a little bit earlier like that, then you sort of get through the week and it, drops off in magnitude. That one got significantly worse. And just by comparison, I think Millwall was a lot better. but it wasn't particularly good. I feel like I've been talking about that Millwall guy for a while. So what I was going to do is I was going to ask whether you guys had any questions about the Millwall game. Well, I mean, it was that kind of game. To be fair, there's very little to know. Do you want me to just carry on? I feel bad just droning on and on and on.
Well, you were highly critical last week of Marvin Sordell, or as we now like to call him, Marvin Scored.
Scordell.
Yeah. Who obviously scored an absolute screamer from 25 yards.
Yeah.
Did he play better, or was that just his one hit and hope that happens going in the bottom corner?
Everyone played better, but it's not good enough. He scored that one, which, give him absolute credit. Live, I thought was a good long range effort. I've seen it back, and it's better than how it looked. We were right at the other end of the ground. Sorry, I didn't think he played particularly well. That said, I don't think anybody really did. And it's the same thing. I mean, I'm an absolute stuck record when it comes to football. I can't abide attacking players who are scared of the box. And it was just another game on Saturday where just nobody wanted to be in there. And you kind of look at the personnel and you see that your front three is Ruben Lemiras, who I don't think wants to be in the box at all, does he?
Was he wide?
Yeah, as wide as you. I mean, how do you set up a front three? Even if you were asked to, how would you set up a front three of Reed, Lemiras, and Sordell?
Yeah,
there's just no dynamic there, is there? It's not. It's like fitting a Lego piece with like budgerigar. It's just they're not the same.
I don't know. It's sort of. I mean, you have obviously. I'm assuming you played Ruben on the right and Reed on the left.
Yeah.
Which sort of.
I think I'm not really sure.
Well, the thing is, it's what are your other options? Your other options are you play Andre right wide, or you play.
Why don't you
wide?
Or why don't you not play sort of three strikers like that? Why don't you play a number 10 and two actual strikers? I'm not saying that's the better thing to do, but it's the thing that matches the personnel. I mean, the other thing you can talk about is why not play 4-2-3-1, which is just bewildering now.
Well, because he's been forced into this 3-4-3 because he doesn't rate Jordan Willis as a right-hand side centre half, and he doesn't want to play Sam Ricketts as a right-hand side centre half, so he's not going to play 4-4-2.
Okay.
Well, that's his explanation.
No, and that's what I'm making that noise at. That's not you.
But I mean, obviously, looking at the team, it's like that's how. I mean, Ruben Ramirez did play that right-hand sided role last season. Sort of did all right, didn't he?
But in a very different way.
Yeah, true.
It's kind of the balance of the team, isn't it? More than anything, it's everything. So you have him on the right-hand side, so he's kind of cutting in. You have someone almost the opposite on the other side cutting in as well. It kind of so when you've got Jody Jones and Reed, I kind of feel like that on each side that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It forms a shape. It forms kind of a dynamic of the team in the same way where when we used to have Ryan Haynes and Phillips on both flanks, sort of fullback, that had a nice balance about it as well because they both do similar things, and not that football's all about shape, but at least it makes sense.
But I also think that if you're going to defend with 7 and attack with 3, you've got to have 3 people who are willing to gamble and get into the box. I mean, I think that anyway. I think no matter what you're going to do, you need to have players that are willing to do that. But especially when you're going to attack with so few, they have to be willing to thrust into the box. And Lemiras isn't that guy, and Carl Reed isn't that guy. So, that was my main problem. I mean, this point started off as one about Sordell. And that was my main problem with him. For the only striker on the pitch, I can't stand it when strikers won't get into the box. And the other thing was this I feel less bad about. When we were on top, he had 2 good chances to settle the game, and he missed both of them. One of them is the one that's deflected, which I guess you can't argue too much with.
The one that sort of trickled.
Trickled right towards us. That was agonising because it looked for a good long period like that was trickling in. But he had a header as well that was actually a better chance that he also rolled wide. And out of confidence, not a player that scored 1 million goals in his career anyway, but there was a 15-minute period while a guy was getting accused of being a paedophile that we were legitimately on top and actually looked pretty good. Good to the extent that we did in the first 15 minutes against Bradford, and we didn't kill the game off. And I think that's two pretty good chances that Sordell had to do. But he was a lot better than he was against Fleetwood, but I would still say not good.
So what were we playing at then? How do we mess it up?
Well, so just throw it out there. It is one of those ones at the moment where we do seem to be the sort of team. The 3 goals we scored in the league have all been sort of quite good goals. But to lead into Neil's, it's like the sloppiness with which teams don't have to work hard to score against us, do they?
That's it, isn't it?
Yeah.
At least make them earn it. If they score a good goal or they earn it. But like that Marshall goal, that was just him having an absolute smash from miles out and it going straight in. It's just, stuff like that winds me up.
If we got relegated because we conceded 70 of them Marshall goals, I'd kind of have to shrug it off. But we're not at the moment, are we? We were the sort of quintessential. For the rest of the game, we were exactly as we were at the very earliest parts of the season, where we were sort of tentatively hopeful of something picking up, but it not ever sort of getting that way. As long as we had the ball sort of roughly further away than like 40 yards from their goal, they just gifted us possession and we were able to kick it around a little bit. Then as soon as it got to the point where we got near their goal, they didn't close us up. They didn't throw men behind the ball. We just lost our minds. We just hadn't got a fucking clue what to do with it. And I would say that chief culpable there was Gadjev, who really feels to me like a player that shouldn't be playing in central midfield. He feels like he's got to be a number 10. I think he's one of them players, a little bit like Musa, and he's a very different player to Musa, but that you'll see what I mean, who I want to see on the ball, but I don't want them to be on the ball very long. Does that make sense? I kind of want him to get the ball, do something dynamic, recycle it quickly, but actually if I'm asking him to drive forward with it, I don't think he's good enough bringing it forward. And he did make a number of poor decisions. I struggle to see what he is yet, but the closest I can think is that he's number 10. Either way, him and Biggie in midfield, I'm not sure I see it. What I will say is that Biggie had his best game for quite some time, but that in the same way that some people were falling over themselves against Fleetwood to say that he was absolutely incredible, he had a good game. He'd not anything of the likes of which we'd never seen before. But
would it be acceptable? So the sort of level where you see John Fleck play the way he can play, okay, John Fleck played as well as he can do. Was Biggie like that? Or was he exceptional for Biggie, or was it just... This is what we expect from him. The performance, if this isn't too sort of convoluted or pretentious, was sort of 50% John Fleck, 50% Jim O'Brien. What was legitimately impressive about it mostly was he really set the tempo. It's just that nobody followed him up on it. He drove forward with the ball well consistently, and he used it all right when he got into the final third, assuming that he had any movement around him to find someone with. That 10-15 minute spell that we had where we were good, that was because Gadjev woke up and Bigger Romana took the game by the scruff of the neck in a big way. And there was a drive about him that you couldn't really take your eyes off for 15 minutes. But actually, that wasn't a flash in the pan. He did play well throughout the game, but it was the sort of performance that you needed to somebody needed to go with him. And part of it, I think, is the fullbacks. They both neither had particularly poor games, unless you consider that they were situated in no man's land constantly. So they never seemed to be far enough back at any time to really shore up the defence, but then didn't offer any attacking threat particularly either. And not no attacking threat, but not a consistent or present enough one that caused Millwall to think about their tactics or how they would set up against us. But what is the attacking threat that they could sort of potentially offer? Do they run up with the ball? Is it just a purely sort of crossing as and when they can basis? Do they have any pace?
No,
because I've not seen, from what I've seen of Page so far, there's no sort of discernible pace there, not in the sort of Ryan Haynes kind of ilk, and I've not seen much crossing ability either. So you kind of wonder, what are you getting as a wing back? They're one of the two you need, don't you?
Yeah, give him his due. Page put one really good ball in the first half, and his crossing looked okay. But I was really, 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 really critical of him after the Bradford game. And actually, I've seen him a few more times since, and I'll backtrack significantly. He's not Ramage bad. There is a perfunctory, standard left-sided defender-ish about him, and the same I'd say about Jerry Sterry. Neither of them really. It's hard to describe when something's so, nondescript. It's like we ordered them off the internet. They're They're like Tesco fullback.
One standard right back, please.
Yeah, it's just off-brand.
As I said last week, they just seem like just pointless loan signings, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
It just seems like Sterry can't be. I mean, he could go on to be really good and prove us, I haven't seen myself, but it just seems they're not special.
No.
It just seems all a bit of a waste of time. And it's a bit, I know, obviously I didn't go to the game, thank the Lord, but having a look at we haven't really discussed the goal. You look at the replay of the goal, and it's like, we paid money for Jordan Turnbull, who's just cost us another goal with either just sloppy play or shit play. And it's just, are we any better off than we were? Because it's another goal which is not that either don't slide and make sure you're on your feet so you can get to the man, or do slide and win the ball. But if you're going to make that decision to try and knock that ball out of play, don't just fall over and just stand there.
But it's another one where, it took a real team effort to concede that goal, didn't it?
But it gets to that point where it's down to one man's decision, isn't it? You watch it, and it's just, if he doesn't fall over, he helps his team out. You only go to ground and take yourself out of the game if you definitely can't reach that. If you can definitely do something with that ball.
Sorry, I'm not.
Sorry, go on.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I completely agree with you. I think that but I reckon So this replay that I saw starts with him. I think there's a mistake in the build-up even before the ball gets to him. And then the striker gets across the centre-back, who I must admit I can't remember, stupidly to get to the near post, and then beats Reece Charles Cook at his near post. I mean, it's a full team effort as far as I'm concerned. I agree with you. With the Turnbull situation is in such sharp focus because we paid for him and we sold Vince Lowe to raise the money to pay for him. But I think that it was just as much his fault as it was three maybe other players.
Well, that's fine. It's just, and this is the problem with having such a young back five, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sort of discussed this at one point last season. Is if you're young attacking players misplaced passes, or when Jody Jones doesn't make the right pass, you're like, shit happens, but it hasn't cost us anything. When you've got a really young defence and they're making errors, it can cost you. And I don't know, we've thrown away another lead, but it just looks like it was so easy for Millwall to score. It just takes away any enjoyment of scoring a goal yourself, because you just sat there. And it's like, I know, obviously it's a different thing, but you're on Twitter and you can just, all the comments on Twitter, the people who aren't there, it's like, we'll concede soon. We'll just concede. Oh, we've conceded. Oh, that's what we do. Let's wait for the winner now for Millwall. And it's just so heartbreaking to look at this line of text of people just going, oh yeah, not even angry, oh shit, we've conceded. It's like, saw that, we could see that coming. Not even at the game you could see that coming. And it's just like, you've got to be able to hold it out. You've got to be able to keep a clean sheet with 5 defenders. Unless you're about to tell me that Millwall were absolutely pummeling us.
No,
you didn't watch it for 15 minutes.
Were we trying to hold out?
Look at the pedo.
Were we playing a good game, or were we trying to hold out? Because sometimes trying to hold out is the issue.
That was mainly my reason for the most trepidation about the performance. I know I say this every week, but I say this every week about Cov as well. Millwall were crap. They were really rubbish. For a team that are fifth and that they lost the playoff final last season, did they?
Well, no.
I can't remember, but you're right.
I think Barnsley beat them. They were bad. They had some. I mean, their famous physicality was a huge bonus to us because all they did was give away really stupid fouls all the way through the game. There was twice where they made really clever, cynical fouls. Where Jody Jones, when he came on, they bundled him over at a point where he could have been through. But the rest of it was of huge benefit to us. Everything they did played completely into our hands. It was them really dumb tackles where it was like where someone's running into the corner and they just smash him over. You know, well, that's exactly what he wanted. We played them like a fiddle, actually, foul-wise, but that we just didn't... We had exactly like Bradford, we had a period in which to capitalise and we failed. And then when the tide started to turn a little bit, not like the game swung, but when it started to be like, shit, we've had 15 minutes of knocking on the door and we haven't scored, does this mean we won't score? As soon as that sort of period hit where it was like, well, that was 15 minutes and now 3 minutes have gone where it's subsiding, they just attacked once and scored. And you just think, you're so soft and vulnerable at the moment and goalless. Because I guess this is the other thing, isn't it? Is that in recent years, we've usually had a striker that would have bagged two, and that sometimes just kills the momentum of the team, don't it? It kind of just kills the spirit. But with no goals being scored, there's always that bit where you kind of, as the opposition team, go, I kind of feel like we might have weathered that storm a little bit. Should we have a go? And then you do, and then we're so soft at the back. The final thing I wanted to say about it, final two things. One, Jody Jones came on and was very good. To the same level as Biggie, I would suggest. Not like world-endingly magnificent, but enough that you looked at him and you go, in a massive squad, you are definitely in my first team. Like, he is of enough quality that I wouldn't... You know, when you're trying to pick your best first 11, he's in there for me. I don't know about you two.
Yeah, you're playing the percentages with him, I think. I mean, he's in there because he could do something. Yeah, in a team that is so sort of scared of doing anything in attacking sense, you've got to have someone like that. It's a bit like, we keep going back to it, but very much like Ryan Kent, where there's more positives to have him in the team than not having him in the team. So you've got to go with it. And, you know, if he tries to take someone on and doesn't beat them, he's a winger. It happens. You know, just give him the ball again, let him do it.
Yeah, I think that I thought he came on and made a big difference, and I think we've said that quite a few times this season. I think he just needs to shake that groin injury and shake that groin injury. He just needs to shake that groin injury and you know, do it on a more regular basis. We're 18. The second thing I'd say is this, and I don't mean this in the sense that I think we're definitely going to get relegated, but this season and this team feels like the team that got relegated from the Championship.
Oh, someone asked a question earlier on Twitter about should we be, you know, Tony Mowbray seems quite blasé about where we are at the moment, and should we be more worried 7 games in that we're, you know, second bottom, or does it not really matter yet?
Neil, thoughts?
Well, I'm worried because it doesn't seem to make any difference to him. It's just, look, last season we finished 8th, and that was a bloody nightmare because we should have gone up. So where is my improvement? Where is this improvement I've been asking for? It's just, they've just kind of given up on that whole mindset of, okay, we're a good team. Had one bad summer of recruitment, and now it's just, I don't sense any kind of feeling from the club or anything. And I know it's early days, but like you say, it just feels blasé. It's like, oh well, it will be all right. Don't worry about it. We know. But then don't seem to be doing anything to make it better. And in my mind, this is a rubbish league. And I kind of picked out an article I wrote 4 years ago earlier when we just went down, and like point for point, it was exactly the same. It was just, we haven't moved on at all, and that's what gets me. Because I just sit here thinking, we shouldn't be in League One. Why are we still happy with being in League One? And then the reality is still kicking in where, well, we're in a relegation zone, we're still shit. And I just can't marry the two. In my mind, my aspiration for what I want this club to do and what I want it to do now, and the fact that nothing, actually nothing tangible is happening to make that any better.
A couple of things annoy me, which continue to annoy me from last season. One of them is last season when I was going, it's all progress. And you're like, it's not progress. Because you look at the team we're playing now, none of them were playing for us. Well, Reece Charles Cook aside, and Sam Ricketts to an extent, none of the players were the players who had got us to where we wanted to be last season. There is no progress from last season.
No.
And we knew that at the end of last season, but still no one talked about it. Everyone was like, what are you talking about? No, it's progress. And it's like, no, it's not progress. Progress is developing a squad. It's developing a team. We haven't developed anything last season. It was a one-off season. The other thing is, when we went through that massive fucking run where we didn't win, you never really got the feeling that Mowbray was really angry about it. And it's a bit like, we're second from bottom. And it's like, oh no, it'll come. And it's like, why can't you just come out and just say, this isn't good enough? We're second from bottom. I'm angry about it. The players know I'm angry about it. And even if it's all fucking words, like we talked about at the very start, at least they're words that make you think, oh, okay, yeah, he's fuming like the rest of us are. But it's like, we're playing well in patches, and it's a bit of bad luck, and, it'll come, because you're like, well, we've watched enough football. We're not stupid. We know things don't just come. We know things don't just, flick a switch. It's highly unlikely we can suddenly start being world beaters. It's just not going to happen with the players we've got. So why not at least all go, yeah, I'm angry of what the situation is? Or do I just want something the managers just don't do?
Well, Presley did it, didn't he? And that bought him some time. But I think that you're preaching to the wrong people here. I'm going to put words in Neil's mouth, but I just think it's all bollocks, what the manager says. I think what he says to the players and the training that he does and everything, that's all important. But I just think what they say at the press, I think they probably just want to get home and have some chips.
I think that's probably more salient, the fact that he just wants to go home. I'm just completely speculating here, but I don't get the sense he wants to be here anymore. I don't feel like this is the same guy who was here at the beginning of last season where everything was going well for him. Now it's just... And he's not going to quit because, he's not at a level where he can quit and just, doesn't matter. So if he gets sacked, he gets sacked. But we're not going to sack him because we don't want to pay him any money. So we're in that sort of limbo where we just got to see it out almost until it gets untenable for either party. And I know that's so dramatic because, it's Tony Mowbray, he's the Messiah. But that's just what I see. I don't sense that, this guy, does he live down here still? Does he still live in the Middlesbrough? I don't.
Middlesbrough, doesn't he?
It's just, where's your commitment? I know it's his life, he can do what he likes, but that doesn't strike me as a manager who's seeing this as kind of his permanent job. I just feel like he's eyeing other stuff up, and I'm pretty sure he was eyeing up whatever job it was in the summer that came available. Rotherham, yeah, and then they just went another direction. He would have took that, wouldn't he?
The problem is his stock is low at the moment, isn't it? I know we look at it and go, okay, maybe not us three, but a lot of Cov fans still think that Mowbray is too good for this division or whatever. And you look at it and you're like, well, he sort of failed last season in a way when you look at the players we had and where we finished and that run.
Effort. There's not any inner way about it. That is a huge failure.
From where he was as well. That's the worst failure.
And it's just like you now look at it, and I think it's 9 years since he got West Brom promoted. There are other managers. Steve Bruce is out there. I'm not a massive fan of Steve Bruce, but he got Hull promoted last season, and he's done it a couple of times. So the next job of that ilk going up, you would have thought Steve Bruce would walk into it. So I'm not sure which championship club is looking at Tony Mowbray and going, if we get rid of our manager, Tony Mowbray's the man, because it's so long since he achieved anything. The one thing he has achieved in management, there's newer managers coming up all the time who have done more impressive jobs. That's why, if you think people like Uwe Rosser have been in the Premier League more recently, or in the Championship more recently, it's just like the turnover's so high. You think, well, where can he go if he leaves Cov? If he's not a success at Cov, I don't see him getting another job in the Championship that easy. So he's going to be in League One. So, I don't know.
I think he's one of these managers who benefits from selective memory, where there's something about that job he did at West Ham, and not West Ham, West Brom, and it's kind of the football they played, where he still holds that reputation as this manager who likes to play good football. And whether that's fully stuck, and I think what happened last year is going to obviously impact him, and that's probably why he didn't get the Rotherham job. But I still feel like the name of Tony Mowbray is still something which people look at and think, oh, he should be okay, shouldn't he? But like we were just saying, it's all bollocks, isn't it? I mean, it's just his name. It's just something that he did 8 years ago. And what about if that was the pinnacle of what he's ever going to achieve?
I was ill last week, so I was at home quite a few days, bored. And I was just really intrigued at once. I just typed in Mowbray Celtic sacked. And it was after his last game. They got beaten 4-0 at St Mirren or something. And there's all the comments underneath. And one of the most salient comments was like, I don't understand why Mowbray builds a squad. We got 45 wingers, 247 attackers, and 2 defensive midfielders, yet we can't defend. And all this sort of, while he comes out and tells us how great, how wonderful his football is. And you wonder if he almost blinds chairman into thinking that, his way of playing football, the right way of playing football. And it's just like, I saw it again when I think Jerry Sterry made a comment like, I'll come to Coventry because I know they're going to play football the right way. It's like, we're second bottom.
I hate that.
How's that the right way?
Much.
Right way, top 3, top 4. It's like, I don't want to play. If right way's losing, give me the wrong fucking way. I want to win. I'm fed up with not winning.
Do you reckon Burton Albion fans are sat there complaining that they're not playing football in the right way?
Sir Alex Ferguson never came out and went, I play beautiful football.
No.
And it's like, if people like Sir Alex Ferguson don't feel the need to come out and, just get on with it. Just don't tell me what you feel like. And I know I banged on those recently as well. Just don't tell me about it. I don't give a shit. What I want to do is watch my team win. When Adi Bufroy came and we were winning playing Route 1 football, it was tedious, but it was like, okay, at least we're winning at doing this. And then it's sort of, the thing with those sort of tactics is once they don't win, they look even worse. But what's the difference between punting it long and passing it between the back 3 if you're losing each game 2-1 or 1-0?
But Joey said it last week, didn't he? That actually last season we didn't win by playing, that quintessentially beautiful football. We won by using the talents we had available to us, which was through passes from Jim O'Brien to Armstrong, lightning quicker, but beyond the defence. And then when defence started sitting deep, we struggled because we were forced into playing this beautiful football, and we couldn't create any sort of chances like we used to. So I think there's a lot of sort of exaggeration about the difference between how teams play as well. I mean, I think fundamentally most teams, if they see a pass is on, they'll play that pass. It's kind of... Yeah. They all kind of play football the same way. At this level, all you get is some teams who are kind of drilled into and to keep the ball a little bit longer. I don't know, I just think there's a little bit too much sort of made about the style of play a lot of the time, when really, if the ball's on and you're good enough, you'll try and play that pass. And we had the good players last year to play it, and this year we just don't seem to have anybody with the vision or wherewithal to actually play those passes.
Right, let's move on, shall we?
Yes.
Neil, you've got some Oldham preview for us.
Oldham, yes.
Oldham. Go on.
Let me get some notes. What have I written down? So, Oldham. So what I did was, because I don't know anything about Oldham, was go to the BBC website and also go to Wikipedia.
Good call.
Based on the fact that last week I read the BBC website table and it was wrong, you're going to have to forgive me if any of this is wrong. But let's blame the BBC. Right, so Oldham are in the bottom half of the table, 17th in the league with 7 points, 3 ahead of us. We're 23rd with no wins, just in case you hadn't realised that.
So have they got 1 win and 4 draws, or 2 wins and a draw, or
1 win, 4 draws?
So they haven't lost that many then.
Well, I'm just going to confuse you with some cleverly veiled stats here, Paul, and see what you think. They've only lost 1 in 6 games. Hold on a minute. They've only won 1 in 6 games. Now, which of those are you going to take?
When was the last victory and when was the last defeat?
Okay.
Are they no defeats in 5?
Here we go. Right, so their last victory was 4 games ago. So they've not won in 3.
Okay.
I am quite lost now.
Yeah, exactly, and that is the point. Form is bollocks.
Yeah.
You can create whatever you like from it. So basically, they're not winning any, and they're not losing any. They're drawing like we are. They've drawn a lot, basically. They've scored more and conceded less than us. See, I'm not being specific here. I'm just saying.
Have they still got Lee Croft? That's the only thing I care about.
They have, and that was the best thing about this, actually. This whole preview is the fact that they have Lee Croft, and he's still fat.
Is he still playing?
He is still... Well, he's coming off the bench a lot. But he's always done that, hasn't he? Every time he kind of just comes off the bench for half an hour, doesn't he?
Waddles on.
Waddles on. Everybody looks at him and wonders how this is happening, and then, he just waddles off.
I suppose if you're that size, you're going to come off a lot of benches, aren't you?
Fair point. Right. So then I went to Wikipedia, because I don't know any of their players. But in fairness to me, their new boss also said at the beginning of the season that he was still learning all their names. So I think I'm allowed. I'm allowed this. So
who's their manager then?
They just got a new one. It's called Steve someone. Steve... I don't know. Paul, stop asking these questions. I haven't written this as my note. Hang on. Steve Robinson. That's it.
I recognise the name vaguely.
What was that?
Northern Ireland assistant manager, old one, I think. So of good stock.
So how come John Sheridan left? Not that
Shut up, Paul. I haven't got this in my notes. Was he there last season?
What's the capacity of the ground?
You lot can get lost. Joey can get away with just a single line. I could just put Seaside by Sammy. So this is me trying my hardest to come up with stuff. So you better let me. No, all I've got now is just a bunch of players who play for him. So Jamie Record. There we go.
There we go, yeah.
I can only presume his legs are still made out of jelly.
Yeah.
Good old Jamie. Peter Clark. There we go. Here's another name. Yeah.
He must be about 40.
Yeah, he must be knocking on a bit of fair.
Only 34. Can you believe it?
Wow.
Only 34? I suppose he's probably only doing it's about 18.
Although he could be doctoring his own Wikipedia. I've heard that's been done before. So I'm gonna let's hope. I think he's 34.
Yeah, I was surprised to see Yakubu's still only 25. We should never go for him.
Over finding Martins, he's still only 18.
Oh dear.
You were in our youth team the first time you were a kid.
Second time around is much better. Oh dear.
Sorry,
old play. I've just got a bunch of loan players because I noticed that they got a load of ones in on loan. So Connor Ripley's in goal. He's from Borough. I'm just going to say names. Cameron Burgess on loan from Fulham, so another team above us. Billy Mackay from Wigan. Yeah, and basically their top scorer is a defender who scored 2. Someone called Law. I guaranteed you now know more about Oldham than any other Cop fan. So
I think so, yeah.
There we go. Previewed.
Can I make a couple of points about Oldham?
Yes.
John Sheridan, not John Sheridan, Steve Robinson. I'm not having him as a football manager, just on aesthetics.
Let's get him. What we got?
I'm on the Oldham official website.
Okay, I'm just looking at him now. He worked at Euros 2016 with Northern Ireland, and so what's non-footbally about him?
I don't know. He just looks more like you might see him in a working men's club, but like a nice, not even a working men's club, like a squash club or something. He's done a bit of fitness. He's having a pint after the game. He might watch the boxing later. He's wearing a jolly nice jumper. It's really, really good. Oh, you got a different picture. He just seems like he looks. I don't know. I can't explain it. More, what I wanted to point out was the sort of neuro-linguistic programming vibe of this headline. Fans must buy tickets in advance for a game against Coventry. Pretty communist. Yeah. Well, I don't want to. Well, you've got to. You must. Okay. Yeah, I hadn't got anything else to say apart from that. No. They're just doing what they always do, aren't they? They're just kind of there in the bottom half of the table. Probably be round about there at the end of the season with us. They're like us in the Championship for all them years, aren't they? Just wandering, like a dead dog, just wandering around looking for somewhere to die, just kind of hoping that someone will put them out of their misery at some point. Yeah. Never actually sort of falling off. Sad, isn't it?
Would you bring in Jordan Ponticelli. Yeah.
I've not seen him. No.
We've got 9 other attacking options. Just because Marvin scored last week, and it's like just because someone scores in the youth team, suddenly we've got to ruin them as well by throwing them straight into the first team as well. I wouldn't have them anywhere near the first team at the moment. It doesn't make sense. Just do every time a young kid scores a goal in youth game. Oh, he's definitely good enough now for the first team, so let's bring him in.
That said, I would definitely have a look at... somebody posted his the top scorers for that youth league.
Oh, yeah, one of them's got like 10 in 6 or something else.
It was crazy, yeah. I think it's 10 in 5.
Yeah.
Sign him up. I think he's called Virgil Gomis from memory. From
Virgil?
Yeah, Virgil. I mean, straight away, you're taking Virgil Gomis just on name alone, aren't you?
Yeah. You don't get many Virgils now, do you?
No, and you take an 18-year-old striker who's presumably 18-year-old striker banging in 10 goals in 5 games.
I just want to know what era you did get a lot of Virgils in.
I'm trying to think of a Virgil. I don't know any Virgil. Was a wrestler called Virgil?
You could go for Virgil van Dijk.
What era was that?
He's playing for Southampton now.
Oh, God. Mm-hmm.
And there was the Thunderbird.
Yeah.
That's the one I was trying to think of.
There you go.
There we go. So puppets and Dutch people.
I think
Thunderbird and isn't one of sort of Tombstone, the guy White Earp, isn't his brother Virgil?
Sorry, Grant, I don't know what you're talking about.
Tombstone's a great film.
It may well be. I've just not seen it. You'll have to lend me your videotape of it. Because that's an old thing, isn't it?
Yeah. My other question, which seems to be raised a lot, is so obviously we all know that Tony Mowbray will make 8 or 9 changes to the starting 11 on Saturday. Would you make any?
I'll be honest and say I would, yeah.
Sounds like Jody Jones should be in the team.
Yeah, at the very least. And I would be... if he's going to persevere with a back 3, which I wouldn't do, then I'd play 2 strikers with a player in behind. But I would go back to 4-2-3-1.
But which of the untrusted right-handed centre-backs would you play as your right-handed centre-back that you don't trust?
I'd play... oh God! I mean, I'd play Willis as first choice. I think Willis has been the best centre back we've seen this season. And then I guess it's pointless playing Ricketts because, and I'm not going to go at Ricketts. I think he's been fine, but you've just bought Jordan Turnbull. You might as well try and play him through it. So I guess I'd play Willis and Turnbull. But then the back 4 is about fucking 10 years old, isn't it? I don't know. I'd have a look at who we were playing and then work out which one of them to play.
So I'd start Ricketts and play Willis at right back, I suppose, if you can't drop Willis. But I'm not overly fussed. But
that's not a bad shout, actually. Yeah,
I think it's just I'd just like to see us go back to 4-2-3-1, and I think Ricketts is the only player with any experience in our back 5. And when you think that Biggie hasn't got that much experience in front of him, and it's and Gadjev is only an injury away from being Stevenson, isn't he? Unless McCann... Was they saying anything about McCann?
Well, I don't know, but I'm not too sure he'd be that near the first team anyway. I know this is going to sound like absolute insanity, but I would also consider that you'd go 4-2-3-1 and you'd play Biggie next to Ivor Lawton. Just because I don't think of all of... I really like the look of Ben Stevenson from what I've seen. I think Gadjev, if I was playing him, I'd push him up a little bit. I think McCann isn't the sort of type of player I need, but from what I understand, Ivor Lawton is a killer. And I don't know how... I know it's crazy because we haven't seen him, but I do think that whilst it's another inexperienced player, I will take a lunatic at this point in time.
You want to get, don't you?
I really want to get, yeah. And actually, Biggie was a bit gittish, but not enough. But I think that I could do with someone that sits next to Biggie that brings out that nasty side in Biggie. That's when I love Biggie the most, is when he's got a bit of a fucking streak in him.
But he's a stupid git, though, isn't he? He's just flying into tackles. I don't mind the ones who are just really getting stuck in and the ball's there to be won. But Biggie, he'll kind of even though in the past he's been sent off for a 2-footed tackle, he will fly into another 2-footed tackle. Yeah, when the ball's not even there without any sort of thought. And it's like, come on, Biggie, learn, will you, mate?
Yeah, he's a lunatic, but I kind of want a couple of lunatics in midfield. But he was. There were. I know I haven't particularly sung his praises. He was a lot better. I mean, he gave a serious signs for thinking, well, let's see how this. You put it perfectly, Neil. You got to give him a lot more games than he's had. But you were like, actually, if you carry on doing like this, then maybe you won't be too bad. But then
good on him. He's got to keep doing it. Then.
Yeah, he absolutely has got to keep doing it, and the team have got to start following him into these games. Yeah. They've got to start following that tempo that he was trying to set. But out of that front four, fuck knows. And I feel like we should carry this on next week because we're at 55 minutes. I wanted to quickly just say thank you to everyone that's voted for us so far for the Football Blogging Awards. We've had a really overwhelming response. My phone ain't stopped buzzing since it opened. If you want to vote for us, head to @NeilAmptyShow on Twitter, and it's the pinned tweet. You just click a link in the tweet, and it just populates it for you, and you just hit tweet, and it sends it in about 3 seconds flat. If you don't have Twitter, what are you doing, Grandad? That's a joke, obviously, hence the fact that I didn't even change the tone of my voice when I said it. You can go on the Football Blogging Awards website, just Google Football Blogging Awards, and there's a form that you can fill in to vote for us. We're on to 5 years of free podcasts now.
Yeah. Do that form, I reckon, because there's 2 awards. There's one for sort of popularity, how many votes you get, and also there's a judges award, which is, so I reckon if people do that form, that'll get us on the list for the old judges one.
Yeah.
Based on nothing, I just reckon the form's a good one to do.
Well, you're a winner. You're in the know.
I won a judges one, and I reckon the form was what saw me through.
Yeah, you got the real one, didn't you?
Yeah, that's the real quiz.
But seriously, thank you for voting. But if you have not voted yet, please do so, because it does mean a lot to us, and it means that we actually all get to be together, which we don't do very often.
We're not allowed unless we're at awards ceremony.
Unless we're at an awards ceremony, we're not allowed to meet in person. Right, has anyone got any final thoughts?
No,
let's all go home. Thank you, Neil.
Good night.
Thank you, Paul.
Cheers, mate.
And thank you. Bye.